And so we have to ask the question. It's the kind of question you can't help but ask about a man like him. A man whose life was a spectacle, from the first wiggle to the final curtain. Did he know? When he stepped up to the microphone in his own house, in that gaudy, beloved room with the green shag carpet, did he have any idea he was laying down his last great rock and roll statement? His final anthem. It's hard to imagine he did. People don't usually get that kind of neat cinematic ending in real life. Life is messy. It stops when it stops. You don't get a memo telling you to make your last song a good one. You just make a song. And then it turns out to be the last one. To understand the moment, you have to understand the man in that moment. This wasn't 1956. This wasn't the lean, hungry kid who scared parents and thrilled their children. This wasn't 1968, the black leather phoenix rising from the ashes of bad movie scripts. This was 1976. He was 41 years old. In rock and roll years, that was ancient. He was a living legend, yes. But he was also a man trapped inside that legend. A man who was tired. He was tired of the road, tired of the same routine. City, hotel, arena, hotel, city. The shows were still huge, the fans still screamed, but something was different. The energy it took to be that larger-than-life figure every single night was immense, right? And he was paying the price. His body was betraying him. The sleek young rebel was gone, replaced by a man fighting his weight, fighting his health, fighting a cocktail of prescription drugs meant to help him sleep, help him wake up, help him perform. He had become isolated. Graceland was his fortress, but it was also his prison. The world outside was complicated. Inside, he had his guys, his routine, his comfort. But that comfort came at a cost. It cut him off from the real world, the world that had once fueled his music with its raw energy. So when his record label, RCA, needed a new album, he didn't want to go to a studio. He didn't want to go to Nashville or Hollywood. The effort was too much. The thought of being in a sterile professional environment felt like a job. And he was tired of the job. So the job came to him. RCA parked a mobile recording truck in the driveway of Graceland. They ran thick black cables through the windows and into the den, the room he called the Jungle Room. Think about that for a second. This wasn't some state-of-the-art recording facility. This was his hangout spot. A room with a stone wall, a built-in waterfall, and oversized carved wooden furniture with fake fur upholstery. It was kitschy, it was comfortable, it was home. This is where he and his band, the TCB Band, were supposed to make magic. The setting tells you everything you need to know about his state of mind. He wanted comfort. He wanted ease. He wanted to work on his own terms, on his own turf. The pressure was still on, though. He owed them an album. The recording sessions in February 1976 were difficult. He wasn't always focused, his mood could swing wildly. Some days he was on fire, engaged, and professional. Other days he was distant, lost in his own world. The band, these incredible musicians who had backed him for years, had to be ready to go the second inspiration struck. They'd wait for hours sometimes for him to feel it, but when he did feel it, the old magic was still there. That voice, it hadn't left him. It was deeper. Maybe a little thicker, but the power and the soul were undeniable. It was the one part of him that seemed immune to the damage of the years. So they're in the Jungle Room. The vibe is loose, informal. It's less like a recording session and more like a jam session that just happens to be getting taped. They're cutting tracks. Some ballads, some country songs. The kind of material he'd been doing for a while. It was good, solid stuff, but it wasn't the kind of thing that would set the world on fire. It was music for his existing fans. Safe. Then a demo of this new song comes up. It was written by a songwriter named Lang Martin Jr. It was different. It had a groove. A funky, relentless bass line. It had a swagger. It wasn't a sad ballad about lost love. It was a song about pure physical energy. A song about a feverish, all-consuming passion. It had a pulse. It was a rock and roll song. You can imagine him hearing it for the first time. Maybe it woke something up in him, that old instinct. The feeling of a song that moves, a song that you can't help but tap your foot to. This wasn't the introspective, gospel-tinged material he often gravitated towards in his later years. This was primal, simple, direct. The lyrics were straightforward, they weren't poetry. They were about a woman who turns his world upside down. My head is in a spin. My feet don't touch the ground. It's a classic rock and roll theme, but there's an urgency to it. A feeling of losing control, of being pulled down into something powerful and overwhelming. And he must have connected with that. His whole life was about losing control or trying to maintain it. Here was a song that celebrated letting go, giving into the feeling. He decided to cut it. The band locked into the groove. Jerry Sheff on bass, laying down that iconic looping riff. Ronnie Tutt on drums, driving the beat with precision and power. The guitars chimed in. It was a sound that was both classic and modern for its time. It had the DNA of his 50s hits, but it was dressed in the clothes of the late 70s. And then he sang. He wasn't just singing the words, he was performing them. He attacked the song. You could hear the commitment in his voice. There's a growl, a sense of danger. He's not just telling a story, he's living it for those 3 minutes. He's the man in the eye of the hurricane. The backing vocalists, the Stamps Quartet, added their own layer of gospel-tinged soul. Their calls and responses with him give the track a feeling of a revival meeting, a celebration of earthly delights. It's a song that feels alive, spontaneous, like it's happening right in front of you. But the real moment, the part that seals it, comes at the very end. The song builds and builds, the energy getting more and more intense. And then, as it fades out, he does something incredible. He drops his voice lower and lower. He hits a note so deep it feels like it's coming from the center of the earth. It's a guttural, resonant rumble. It's a show-off move, a piece of pure vocal theatrics. It was him reminding everyone, and maybe himself, what he could still do. J.D. Sumner, his bass singer, was famous for his low notes. But on this track, the boss went lower. It was a statement, a final, powerful exclamation point. Did he know it was his last anthem? No. He thought it was just another track for another album. A good one, for sure. A potential single, something that might get some radio play. But he wasn't thinking about his legacy. He was thinking about getting through the session, getting the album done, so the record company would be happy, the sessions ended. The album, From Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee, was put together. And this song was chosen as the lead single. It was released in June 1977, almost a year after it was recorded. It started to climb the charts, slowly at first, then picking up steam. It was a hit. A real bona fide hit. It was his biggest in years. People were responding to that energy, that groove. It was proof that he still had it, that he could still compete in a world of disco and punk rock. He was performing the song live in his concerts during that final fateful summer. And this is where the story gets its tragic, poetic twist. Imagine the scene. On the radio, you have this vibrant, powerful, sexually charged song. A song full of life and swagger, sung by a voice that sounds like it could move mountains. But on stage, the man singing it was a shadow of his former self. He was bloated, sweating, sometimes forgetting lyrics. He was clearly unwell. There were moments of brilliance, of course. The voice could still soar. But the contrast between the man on the record and the man on the stage was heartbreaking. The song was about being pulled down, down, down into a fever of passion. But in his real life, he was being pulled down by something else entirely. By fame, by addiction, by loneliness, by the immense weight of his own myth. The lyrics, by a cruel twist of fate, had become a metaphor for his own life. My head is in a spin. My feet don't touch the ground. Lower and lower. It's almost too perfect, too on the nose. And then, on August 16th, 1977, he was gone. The news shocked the world, and in the immediate aftermath, as the world mourned, that song was everywhere. It was on the radio constantly. It shot to the top of the charts all around the globe. In the UK, it hit #1 right after his death. Suddenly, the song was no longer just a fun, energetic rock tune. It was an epitaph. It was a final will and testament set to a funky bass line. The public, hearing it now through the lens of his death, couldn't separate the art from the life. The song's narrative of being pulled way on down became inextricably linked with his own tragic descent. That final, impossibly low note he hits at the end took on a whole new meaning. It was no longer just a cool vocal trick, it felt like a final, deep, resonant goodbye. A descent into silence, the last sound from the king before he left the building for good. So, to go back to the original question, did he know? No. He couldn't have. He wasn't a poet crafting his own elegy. He was a singer in his den trying to find a spark. He found a song with a great beat, and he sang the hell out of it. That's all it was to him. A good day's work. But art has a funny way of taking on a life of its own. It leaves the artist's hands and goes out into the world, where it gets shaped and reinterpreted by the people who hear it. The meaning of a song isn't just what the writer or the singer intended, it's also what the listener brings to it. And after August 1977, everyone brought the story of his life and death to this song. It's his final rock and roll anthem, not because he planned it that way, but because fate, chance, and circumstance made it so. It's a perfect bookend to his career, an accidental masterpiece of context. His career started with a bang, a burst of youthful, rebellious energy that changed the world. And it ended with this song. A song that, on the surface, was about that same kind of energy. But underneath, shaped by the tragedy of his final years, it became something much deeper. It represents the duality of his later life. The recorded perfection versus the flawed human reality. The incredible, enduring talent versus the decaying vessel that housed it. The song is full of life, even as he was losing his. It's a burst of light just before the darkness. What makes it so powerful is that it wasn't a ballad. His last big statement wasn't a tearful, reflective song like My Way. It was a rocker. It was defiant. It was a reminder of who he was at his core. Not a balladeer, not a movie star, but a rock and roll singer. He went out not with a whimper, but with a growl. And a final deep, rumbling note. He didn't know he was creating his final anthem. He was just doing what he had always done. He was singing a song that moved him. And in the end, that's the most honest and fitting finale of all. He wasn't trying to write his own myth. He was just trying to feel the music one last time. And he made the whole world feel it with him. The song was Way Down.